DJ and PK is proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort. Remarkable, within reach. Down there in the St. George area, Black Desert, yes. 2 months from now, we will be getting ready for the PGA tournament coming to our state. I am fired up for that for sure. I'll be down there, Black Desert. Check it out because it is remarkable and within reach. Riley Jensen sitting in. Ask the question that you just asked before we went to break.
So, Texas is ranked number 4. Last year, they win the Big 12, and they're in the 4-team playoff.
Yeah.
Is the Big 12 so down that the team that's predicted to win the Big 12 this year is 13th?
Right.
Or is this just the benefit of being in the SEC if you're Texas?
Yeah, the Big 10 and SEC dominating there with Notre Dame, the first 12 teams ranked. And then interestingly, the first Big 12 team is 13th. The first ACC team is Clemson at 14. I have a concern over this.
ACC's Florida State, isn't it?
You're correct. My bad. I didn't have that on my screen. I had the second 10 that I was looking at.
Feels like they've moved.
Yeah, really. There you go. I was looking at from 11 to 20. And that's where you see the...
Where's Colorado in all this? I mean, where's Dion? I thought we're talking... I mean, they have the best quarterback in the world, in the history of the world.
It's a long time.
And they're not even in the top 25?
But they're receiving 2 votes.
Oh,
that
2
Brian
votes.
Howell giving him 1, and who else, Yuck? Yeah.
Dion's brother is in Florida as a reporter.
SMU receiving votes. BYU's got them the second week of the season. I'll be down for that game in Dallas.
Lucky you. That's a nice campus, SMU.
I was there back when the WAC had 16 teams. Been a long time, but I've been there. So I'll be there for that BYU game.
I think that's where BYU practiced when they went to the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
Nice facilities.
To me, this raises an eyebrow because are you going to have this? We already have the financial gap there, and I know your mark is going to have practices and games on the moon, so they're going to figure out ways to close the gap, but so is the other guy. If it really works, then Ohio State will have a game on the moon. And so whatever you do to get money, we can do it too. And so they're ever going to close the financial gap. This, I'm not so caught up in this particular season, and it's just a preseason poll anyway, but I wonder going forward here, this is what we're going to see. And so we'll have this playoff, and we'll let you in, but then you get beaten, you're gone. And so from that point on, for the last 3-4 weeks of the season, all we're talking about is SEC Big Ten, because that's devastating to the ACC and the Big 12. We can talk about these teams in August and September, October, November, but when we get to December, it's going to be exclusively about those 2 conferences, because that's bad news, and I'm concerned about that.
Well, I think and I know that you were saying 13th isn't good, and I agree with you in a lot of ways, because how many losses are in front of you to help you move up? And that's only if you're winning every game.
Yeah, but the good thing about it is, you have the opportunity to not worry about that, because if you win your conference, you will be in the playoff.
I know,
and then you'll have an opportunity to win.
But you win your conference, you're in the playoff, but you're the 10 seed and you're playing against the 3 seed? You're the 12 seed and you're playing against Georgia?
Don't they get the high seed if you win the conference, Yock?
So if you win the conference, you're getting like one of the top 4 seeds, 5 seeds?
It's not so much the seeds that I'm worried about, because the seed isn't going to help you win.
No, I know, but it
may help you win the first week, but then after that, it's out the window.
That's the thing about it, is it gets you that first round game at home. That's
where I think you worry if you're a Utah fan, though.
I can see that.
You don't want to be too low in there.
Well, I mean, you can't backdoor your way to anything. You're going to have to beat good teams.
Right.
My point is, once we get done with the preliminaries, it's like, are they still going to be alive to be talked about? It's cool when we have the upsets in the NCAA tournament. But a lot of times that team turns around and then loses the next game. Right? And so then as we progress, it's the bigger schools doing their thing, the basketball schools, and away they go. And so they get beat, Not all the time. I mean, San Jose State made it to the final a couple years ago, and they've got a really good program. So, but I think basketball is a little different in that a team like San Diego State can get that far. I don't think a team like San Diego State in football can get that far.
But can a team like Utah,
basketball?
Can a team like Utah go to the national championship now that it's big enough?
In football?
Uh-huh.
I want to say yes.
I hope.
But
I
that's
hope
my.
so.
I think it's my fandom in me is saying yes.
I thought you're not a fan. You're a consultant.
Of the other team.
Oh.
But I mean, fandom for my friends, my neighbors who are Ute fans, fandom for the show. Not fandom personally. I get nothing out of it. It doesn't matter to me. But fandom for the show, for the community. Like, it was a lot of fun in the community when the Jazz were going into the finals, right? It did nothing for me. I felt nothing, win or lose. It doesn't matter to me personally, but it's more fun for everybody else. You want to go to a good party, not a bad party. And it was a party in this community for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks when the Jazz were going through the Western Conference Finals, going to the NBA Finals. That's all everybody was talking about. It was great for business. It will be great for business if Utah got themselves into a deep playoff run. I mean, from my perspective, I was at the Final Four. It was a blast. I was at the Fiesta Bowl. I was at the Sugar Bowl. I've been at both Rose Bowls. That's fun. So, yeah, I'm going to root for them because it's fun. It's not like I have any personal gratification, but it's fun to have that. And I see my friends who are fans of these teams, and they feel great about it. It's awesome. We all understand that. But I just don't know if they can. And maybe they can do it like this year because this is the last time you'll ever have a quarterback with this much experience who's been with the same offensive coordinator all these years. And in a year or two, it's going to change. And I mean, Kyle's going to step down. He's going to retire. And
think Andy will step down?
I don't know. I think there's a decent possibility. I don't know. People have told me stuff. But all that stuff will change. Not to say that it gets worse, but right now, this literally could be their best shot because then going forward, if it's so Big Ten SEC dominated, it's bad news. You look at the College World Series this year. It was ACC and SEC, right, at the end there. Those were the only teams. There's 4-4 who went to Omaha. And I grew up in the Phoenix area, right, and there were no Diamondbacks. It was the San Francisco Giants AAA team. And ASU was a big, big deal, right? So I still know people there, and I follow it. I mean, I used to go to a lot of the games. It's a big deal. And, they were going to the College World Series. When I was there, they won the College World Series. And
did Reggie Jackson play for them when you were there?
Yeah, no, it was a little
later.
Yes, it was in the 80s, not the 60s. Would have been cool to go there then.
I heard he hit a home run at BYU that's like still going.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, with this altitude.
Yeah.
What they're telling me is a high administrator, I don't want to give away, at ASU, literally standing right face to face, told me they lost a punch and Judy hitter. That's his phrase. Punch and Judy hitter. A singles hitter. They lost him to an SEC school over NIL. He said the guy isn't even that good. But they gave him $250,000. He said he's a punch and Judy hitter. He was disrespecting the guy right to my face. I don't want to give away names. I don't want to say where he went. You can, because I don't want to get into that. Because he wasn't telling me for publication, but he was giving me background information, telling me that this is what we're facing. And then we saw it in the College World Series when you only had 2 conferences represented. The College World Series isn't nearly as big a deal as football. But the point being that they've got the money and they can take a punch and Judy hitter off ASU's roster that they weren't going to give any money to because he wasn't that good. Imagine they're better players.
Right. Imagine Arizona State having a really good player.
Yeah. They're going to give him way more than $250. And this is from an administrator in the athletic department who told me this. And so it makes me concerned that if it becomes just a 2-conference domination.
In everything.
Yes. And if it matters in baseball to the SEC, which it clearly does, is certainly going to matter in football, right?
Yeah.
Because the top 5 sports in SEC land are football, 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 football. But yet an SEC program takes a middling guy off the Devils and pays him all that money.
Some things that have been on my radar that are a little bit disturbing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jake and PK, but apparently...
Well, it's PK and Jake, but go ahead.
Sorry, PK and Jake. But apparently it's now going to be 105 approved scholarships for football.
That looks like the direction they're going, yeah.
Well, that whole rule...
It's up to 105.
Okay.
It'll be a roster limit of 105 players. You can offer as many scholarships as you want.
But the whole reason that rule was moved to 85 is so that Nebraska couldn't back in the 80s, they couldn't offer 105 guys and take a star player away from...
Alabama and Paul Bear Bryant did this for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
They would offer guys that they knew would never play for them so that they wouldn't play for the competition. And we're going back to it.
That's one theory.
We're going back to it so that they can offer so Alabama now can offer the outstanding LDS athlete to go to Alabama. He would have been a star at BYU, and he'll sit on the bench at Alabama for 4 years.
Yeah, but at the same time, he can transfer without any repercussion.
Sure, so but we're kind of going back. We're kind of going back to what we were at. But that's true at every school. Anybody can transfer without repercussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more concerned about the money, not the scholarship. It's nice.
Fair enough, but they're probably going to be able to pay every player, too.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
BYU can't pay every player.
Right. This administrator told me this guy, this baseball player, will not play at the school that he is going to. But he's going there for the cash. Now, he probably thinks he can play, but the guy told me, and this guy's a baseball guy, obviously, he told me the dude won't play. And now we got to go out and replace him. So that's my concern. I want, from a competitive standpoint, whether it's Utah, whether it's Kansas State, whether it's Oklahoma State, whoever gets into the playoff this very season from the Big 12, I want to see have success. Now, obviously, I would choose Utah over Oklahoma State because it'd be a heck of a lot more fun for us in our job. We want to see these teams win. I'm a Cougar. I'm a Ute. I'm a Jazz fan.
So you would root for Deion Sanders if he made it to the playoff?
Oh, I've got no problem with Deion. I don't root against Deion. Deion's a showman. You got to take Deion for what he is. He's a one-man circus, an entertainment figure unto himself. So when he's up there, you believe. It's all entertainment. It's nonsense. He entertains me when he was chewing out Ed Warder. Do you believe? Ed Warder's a journalist, man. What does he believe in? He's not supposed to believe in either way. It doesn't matter to him. He's just asking questions. But it was fun, right? So Deion does not turn me off at all. So yes, to answer your question, sure, why not? Yeah. And believe me, my gosh, if they ever got there, they're not going to get there. But if they did, and I'm speaking this season, The TV people would just be beside themselves. But he's the exception, man. Football coaches aren't like him.
True.
They're grinders. They're not big-time celebrities, I don't think. They've turned into, but at their core, Kyle Whittingham is a celebrity. But he's a football coach, man.
Yeah.
You know, he's not, the celebrity is like meaningless to him. He has to do it because it's part of the gig, but he couldn't care less about that. And if you care about celebrity, you're not really a football coach. That's the way I look at that.
Was Urban?
Urban was. Yeah, he was a celebrity.
But he's also a grinder, wasn't he?
In the early days.
In the early days. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle Whittingham's the same guy today that he was 20 years ago.
Right.
And 20 years from now, he'll be the same guy that he is today. Right. You know what you're getting from him every day.
No, Urban was the only outlier that I could think of that, like, and I do think he changed.
Yeah, guys like Patino and all that. I mean, they love that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Whittingham, no. No, he
those
just doesn't.
Those Italian guys.
Yeah, and they're flamboyant.
they're way into.
They're flamboyant.
You know.
Yeah, and so you can get caught up in that. But a guy like Bronco, when he was at BYU, he hated that stuff.
Right.
You know, I just have a big concern about where this thing is going to go money-wise. I do not want to see these two conferences dominate, and I'm afraid as we move into the coming years and decade that we could potentially see that. Now, Utah gets into that conference, well, then they don't really care, and then it's go time for them, and that's the best-case scenario. But there's going to be a whole lot of other schools.
Or the Big Ten better?
No, I think Big Ten. Yeah. I think it's some variation of whatever it is. When we get to 2030-ish, they're going to be there. That's my own thought.
The SEC has made it very clear they only want adjacent states to where they already are.
Right, because they can. They don't have to.
Sure, yeah, because they can, yeah.
They don't need it. So I don't see that. All right, we're going to talk about the Jazz with Larry Markkinen, with Brian Geltzeiler, who is an NBA expert. See him all over the place as far as media goes. He's coming up next. Stay with us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Athletics are funny that way. I've always said this. Not only does it attract people from all sorts of different backgrounds, but all sorts of different intelligence levels, different emotionally intelligence levels, like all those things. Like, I don't know how coaches do it, honestly.
This is going to sound mean because it's certainly not the case. There are legitimate savants, can think everything with the game, and then aren't super intelligent off the floor and struggle off the floor. And that's quite common.
It's so applicable, though, to life. I mean, Elton John just sat down and played the piano. I think in person you can really tell the difference between not intelligent and maybe just public speaking isn't my first way of communicating. But then you can see people as just like, okay, this dude's just a dim bulb. And as a dim bulb myself, I feel like we can really sniff out each other. You know what I mean?
Spider sense tingles when you get around each other.
This guy's faking it just like me.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to Santana and Counting Crows Oneness Tour at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 21st. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win Santana and Counting Crows. Do you know that I once rode up the elevator in Las Vegas with the Counting Crows lead singer?
Was it a long December?
Yes, it was. It was in December. He is a Cal Bear fan, and the Cougars were playing the Cal Bears in the Vegas Bowl.
And he was there.
And he and I rode up the elevator together. Yeah. A couple of musical people.
Musical geniuses.
Yeah, a couple of singer-songwriters. Yeah. He had his dreads and...
We clearly use that term loosely. I mean, speaking for you.
Yeah, it was cool to see him there. But now we turn our attention from football to basketball. DJ's off today. Riley Jensen sitting in. Joining us now is Brian Geltzeiler. He's the host of SiriusXM NBA Radio, an NBA TV contributor. We just played Brian, My Hometown from Springsteen. Do you like that tune?
it's all right. It's not one of my favorites. It's not a bad one. There's no bad Springsteen song. But it's not one of my favorites.
And you are from Livingston, which is like 10 miles or so from my hometown of Parsippany. How about that? What a
Not
small
even.
world.
It's closer, man. Like 6 or 7 miles.
7 miles.
I mean, I jump right on 280, right near where my house is, like right around the corner from my house. And in 3 miles, I'm in Parsippany, 3-4 miles. So, I mean, even less, about 5 miles. Close by.
Yeah. And when 280 opened up, man, it opened up a whole new world of transportation. You no longer had to take side streets where we'd get down to my grandparents' house in West Orange.
And you're going to love this, PK. Now there's a Wawa right off exit 1 on 280. Gas, all of it. So, Wawa's like a little slice of heaven.
But in Jersey, you can't pump your own gas. Is that true?
That is 100% true. I believe it's the only state in the union you can't pump your own gas.
I heard it might be Oregon, but
Oregon you can't.
Oregon too.
But I can tell you, I've been to Oregon on work assignments, and I pump my own gas. So
maybe not. I had thought it was the only one. Again, I'm not swearing to that. I could certainly be wrong.
Yeah.
But I had heard it was the only state in the union. And it's funny, I was in Maine last week, and I got to stop and get gas somewhere. I'm getting out, pumping my own pretty much everywhere I go.
Yeah, for sure. That's the way it
Which,
is.
by the way, as time goes on, I used to like the fact that they pump gas for me in Jersey. And now the more I realize is that if I want to move through a gas station quickly, pumping my own gas is the way to do that.
I would agree. Yeah, and we go back. I try to go back every couple of years. It's weird when it's time to get gas, but that's what you do. So there you go. All right, big news for the NBA. You know, today the Jazz can sign Markkanen. I'm of the opinion that they should sign him and go ahead, and they get drafted 6 guys the last 2 years, 5 of them first round. Filipowski right at the beginning of the second round this year, so it's for all practical purposes, it might as well be considered a first round pick. What are you hearing as far as what the Jazz want to do with Markkanen?
Well, listen, I think for the Jazz right now, this is going to be – the problem is this. If you don't re-sign him here and give him the extension, now you're in like a feeding frenzy coming into the trade deadline with the knowledge that you kind of have to – you're stuck having to move him because you're in the last year of a deal. If you want to retain the asset with the cap moving up and the player that he's proven to be, you find a reasonable extension with him. And if you're him – listen, he just came out of a contract that he outplayed. I mean, he's well worth a heck of a lot more than what this last contract was. The 16, 17, 18 million is going to make, I don't know the exact figure, but in that neighborhood. He's outplayed it. So for him, maybe he would take a little bit less just to lock up, just to be able to lock up having some more guaranteed years out there and to mitigate some injury risk and all that. But I think for the Jazz, you sign him, and even if that means you have to hold him the whole year because the extension doesn't kick in yet, you hold him the whole year. And you worry about it next offseason. You kind of see how he meshes with the young players. He's still young enough that he can be part of this future. I have never been, and PK, you've heard me enough with you guys to talk about this, I have never been on board with being a guy that said, hey, you just got to move out Markkanen for picks and get yourself higher up in this next draft. And I think that Larry Markkanen is the kind of player that's part of the solution here. I don't think he's a guy that you have to walk away from. And, the demand out there for him would tell you that he's that kind of guy. Now, again, I don't think the Jazz have gotten the Godfather types of offers that they have wanted to trade him, because I think if they had, they would have moved him already. Right. But with all that said, if you're not getting those types of offers, he's better suited on your team than he is moving to another one. It's not like it's not trade him or bust. It's either we're going to get something that's really, really worth us moving off this really good, 27-year-old player, 26, 27-year-old player who's done a great job for us. Or if we're not, you know what? The Jazz can be good in 2 or 3 years. They're going to be 29 or 30 years old. Right. There's certainly a chance for him to be part of what you're building here. And then the other thing is this, cap going up. He's really outplayed this contract. If you sign him to the right deal, and you work with him well, and you tell him you're at least keeping him through the end of this year, because that's the other thing with him. He likes it in Utah. He wants to stay there. So, maybe he takes a little bit less with the agreement that this kind of puts you here for at least another year, if not more. And then maybe when the time comes to move him, he outplays this contract. So I just makes too much sense not to figure out an extension with him and then kind of go forward here. If the Jazz were bereft of picks, if they were in the desperate type of Brooklyn situation that they were in when they had to trade Bridges to do a full reload and do that when that Houston deal where they gave up a first to essentially get their own picks back, I would say, listen, take what you can get and move him out while his contract's a little bit lower. You can get some good young players here, but you're not getting those offers. No one's giving them the kind of pick package that they're looking for marketing. And if they're not, sign them, keep them for the year, revisit next summer.
Is he the type of player that can be a number 2 on a team that makes a championship run, or is he a 3 or a 4 guy on a team like that?
No, it just depends who the number 1 is, right? I think he could certainly be a number 2 guy. If your number 1 is a real top-level guy, he can certainly be a number 1 guy. You know, he's going to a number 2 guy. He's going to get paid like a number 2 guy. So, yeah, I think there's no doubt that he could be that. But I also think some of what we're going to start to see here, and the Celtics gave us a little bit of a preview, but they just happen to have a legit 1 and a legit 1A guy. But I do think you're going to see more of the Knicks ensemble approach because, like, look at what Philly did. Philly's like, this is like, you know, with the World Series of Poker, all their chips to the middle of the table. You know, they just gave a 34-year-old player, Paul George, the last guy left in the league from his draft, which is absolutely crazy when you look at some earlier drafts and how many guys are still left. Like, you know, 09, but he's the last guy left from the 2010 draft. Gave him 4 years. So he's 38 years old. You're going to be paying him, you know, $50-some-odd million a year. And so they took an enormous amount of risk with a delineated number 1, a delineated number 2, and a delineated number 3. Look at the Knicks approach. Now, granted, Brunson is the 1. The rest of it's an ensemble approach. And I think Markkanen's one of these guys that looks great in an ensemble type of situation. And listen, I think the 2 best fits out there for him, obviously Golden State's a team that's really wanted him and been willing to step up. What puzzles me in the Golden State negotiation. Now, again, even if they agreed on the lead player going out, there was never going to be – the Golden State was not giving Utah the picks that they wanted. But what I'm scratching my head about with Golden State is Utah wants Podziemski. They're willing to trade Kuminga. If I'm Golden State, it's the other way around. I think Kuminga could – I think there's still potential for stardom for him. And Podziemski's a good player and a solid guy that can help you win. But he doesn't have the upside of Kuminga. So I found that to be odd. Then the other team I think that's interesting is San Antonio. And I say that just in the respect they have picks to give. And Markkanen, to me, you talk about, like, could he be a 2? On San Antonio, if you build the whole thing properly, he could absolutely be the perfect front court partner to Victor Wembanyama, playing the 4 to Wembanyama's 5. And I think that could be an approach that could make them into a title contender if they're able to fill out the perimeter in the right way. So those are a couple of spots and places to watch for him. But in the end, again, with Wembanyama, sure, he'd be a great 2. Other places, maybe it's more of that ensemble approach I discussed.
Brian Geltzeiler, XM Sirius Radio, NBA Radio, with most of the time with Sam Mitchell, but with some other guys. I've heard you at all various times of the day, and I enjoy listening to you, my Jersey guy. And the Golden State thing, I agree with you. You know, we've had this discussion, and to me, Kuminga is my guy. If I gotta get that, if I'm the Jazz perspective, I gotta get Kuminga. I'd rather have him than anybody else. But I'm wondering from the Warriors' perspective, you know, you got to keep these guys because you get Markkanen, but depending on what you give up, I don't know how much better that actually makes you. And Steph is aging out, obviously. And I'm wondering from the Warrior perspective, if you think that they want to keep Steph and, you know, he means so much, yada, yada, we get all that. If it's going to be like we've seen with so many teams that hang on to the star and they want him to retire in the uniform and play only there and all that stuff and all that, you know, sentimental Hollywood type ending. It seems like the teams that do that is say, well, okay, we got to wait until the player retires, a la Dirk Nowitzki, and then we start our rebuild. And so I'm wondering, even if they got Markkanen, how good would they be depending on what they gave up?
Well, it's a great question, and the short answer is it's very, very tough to tell. Listen, I feel like if they kept Kuminga, and traded Pajemski, the amount of size that they would have across the board between, Markkanen and Draymond and Kuminga, I think that would complement Curry well. I think one of the problems that the Warriors have is that the league's gotten bigger and they haven't. And that, to me, and that's why this whole Pajemski-Kuminga thing is a little puzzling to me. Because, Pajemski's a 6'4" player, he's a small player. Jonathan Kuminga is a 6'8", physical freak. So, you look at that and say, if they were able to keep Kuminga and be able to roll a massive amount of size at you, even when not necessarily having that one really, really big guy, that to me, I think they could be competitive for a couple of years. And also, the thing for the Warriors and being competitive in the next 2 years and what they're doing with Curry depends upon Curry. Let's face it. Okay, the reality is with Steph Curry. He has not looked. He's had a couple of flashes here in these Olympics. He's had moments, especially the South Sudan game from late last week. He looked like every bit of 36 years old.
Right.
And so if he's going to look that way, then Markkanen is not going to matter. If we're going to get the Curry from 2 years ago that carried a team on his back to a title or a version that's close to that, Markkanen makes them as tough as anybody in the Western Conference. That's the hard part for what the Warriors are trying to do. And I think they're trying to thread an appropriate needle. Realize this about the Warriors. It's not like – I just made the point to you guys earlier that Markkanen could certainly be an important part and an important pillar of a rebuild for the Jazz. He can also be that for the Warriors as well. The Warriors look to make a deal. If Markkanen was 31, 32, I don't know that they would be looking to trade and make a deal for him. The fact that he's 27 allows them to be able to say, hey, you know what? Even if we have to take a step back in the absence of Curry, we have Markkanen, we have Pajemski, we have, whatever other young guys that we have there, Trace Jackson Davis, and, we can kind of get ourselves moving. But I think one of the things that you're seeing with the Warriors here, and one of the reasons that they haven't been able to trade for Markkanen, comes down to the fact that they're very conscious of what you just asked me, which is if we now sacrifice an entire treasure chest of picks the way the Knicks just did for Bridges, where the heck are we if Steph's running out of steam? Now, they're not going to usher Steph out to pasture, and they're not going to trade him unless he asks.
Right.
However, they may proceed with a rebuild in earnest with Steph still there. That's possible if Steph can't carry the load in the way that he was once able to. And he had a decent year this year. There's no doubt. And everybody's entitled to have a couple of bad games here. And, Lord knows summertime is kind of hard to ramp yourself back up, and Curry always keeps himself in great shape. But he's played a lot of basketball, and the Olympics are a lot more basketball. I mean, we're not shoveling dirt on Joel Embiid, who has not, besides that last game against Puerto Rico, has not looked good at all. He's looked terrible. So, it's a short sample size, but it all would depend. If they could be competitive with Markkanen, it would all depend upon what version of Curry he's getting and how long Curry can continue to play at a level he played at this past season and the level he played at when they won the title in 2022.
Brian Geltzeiler joining us. So Summer League, I used to just blow it off completely, but Donovan Mitchell's Summer League changed my mind a little bit. As the Summer League wore on, particularly in Vegas as opposed to here in Salt Lake, I got impressed with Filipowski. I think Collier, there's some decent upside. And I thought Cody Williams has got a game that translates to the NBA. I mean, these are all just such young kids. You got to give them time to grow. And so basically the overview is, what do you take from the drafts? They got 6 guys now. Who do you think can make it?
All right, well, let me start with Cody Williams because I actually think there's a chance he can be the best player that comes out of this draft. I love his physical profile. I feel like he can be a really good defender day one in the NBA. He's a worker bee, and I think he can get a lot better. I think he was a terrific pick that had a lot of vision and upside. Listen, I like Keontae George a lot. I think part of what they need to do here is maybe clear some more minutes for him and give some more responsibility for better or for worse in the short term. And I do know that the Jazz made a lot of overtures to try to move Jordan Clarkson in this offseason, and there was really not a lot of interest around the league. which surprises me a little bit because, listen, he didn't have a great year last year, but a guy like Clarkson, who's one of these microwave types of guys, an instant offense you can bring in off the bench, his contract's not crazy. And, he could have some value, but I do think you got to clear some space for him. So maybe it's him, maybe it's Sexton. One of those guys has to go to give him a chance. I will say this, I have big-time concerns about Taylor Hendricks. I don't know that that's going to end up being the best pick. I think he hasn't been great. And I don't know. I'm not sure about him right now. But I would tell you that, I think George, I liked what I saw out of him last year when things were going well. He was a meaningful contributor, and I think you need to see more of him. And I'm really, really excited about Cody Williams for the Jazz.
Brian, as always, you're bringing it strong. We appreciate it. Go have some Taylor ham and cheesesteak and go to Star Tavern and get some pizza and have a good time back in Jersey.
My favorite thing about you, PK, is that you don't call it pork roll. So
that's down Philly. That's South Jersey.
That's the South Jersey, and we don't do that in Northern Jersey. My guy. All right, my pleasure, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Okay. That's our guy, Ryan Geltzeiler. How about that, man? Two guys from Jersey.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just so awesome. I just love it. Like, that segment was awesome. It was just all Jersey. It was Love Fest. It's amazing how much you guys just, really, really bonded there.
We grew up
that was so
miles
fun.
apart, and here we are.
Here we are, talking sports.
In Salt Lake
New
City.
Jersey's the best.
Come on, you got to admit.
It's the best place.
I'm not saying it's the best place, but
We chew our gum with our mouths open.
we do everything with our mouths open. That's for sure. Okay, stay with us at the top of the hour. We will transition from basketball to hockey. Yeah, we got it all. We got some football next. Stay with us. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
It's the first time in a long time that he's going to see that kind of action. No matter how good you are or how much you've been through, there's going to be a tiny bit of a mental thing he's got to get over once he gets out there and gets that knee going, gets his feet wet a little, and feel out how he feels and where he's at. And then once he does, you get through that first series, I imagine he'll be just comfortable and fine. But Cam Rising hasn't played for 2 years. So what is that rust? What is it going to be like game one? Do I anticipate he'll have any? I don't know. It's actually going to be really fascinating to watch his first couple of series to see what he looks like. It'll be really fascinating to watch that. You just anticipate that he's going to be old Cam again, and that's what fans want to see, and that's what the coaches expect, and I think that's what Cam expects.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your life moves fast, doesn't it? Quantum Fiber Internet is faster. Move up to tomorrow's speed today. Go to quantumfiber.com. That's quantumfiber.com. All right, we've been talking about the rankings are out in the college football, the coaches poll. Utah is the highest ranked Big 12 team at 13. And then you've got Kansas State at 17. You've got Arizona at 21 and Kansas at 24. Are you okay with those teams where they are ranked? Riley, Jensen? Oh, and Oklahoma State 18.
I mean, look, after you get past 15, I'm pretty okay with whatever happens.
See, I think people are sleeping on Oklahoma State.
You think Oklahoma State's going to be better?
I do. Yeah. I think they got top 10 possibilities.
I guess the part with me with Oklahoma State is I feel like they always have guys that when they get off the bus, they're athletic, and I always feel like they underachieve. Like I feel like under this coach, like they've had so many athletic players and so many good players at Oklahoma State, and they've never really put it together. So I just don't have a lot of faith in them.
But they've been good.
They've been good.
Gundy and Kyle were hired at the same time, within days of each other.
So they're the longest tenured probably in
the conference. And then I think
pretty close in all of it, right?
The guy at Iowa is up there.
Okay.
terms of longevity at one singular school.
Yeah.
In a business that doesn't have a lot of security and longevity. These guys move around so fast and so quickly. Things change dramatically.
I mean, everybody's saying Kansas State's going to be good. Oklahoma State will be athletic.
I think Kansas State will be good. But if I'm picking...
Out of those two?
Yeah, if I'm picking the teams to be in Dallas for the title game, I'm going Utah, OSU. Right now, today, those are my two teams. And that's Utah's first Big 12 game is Oklahoma State. Game 4 of the season. I'll be there. Looking forward to that game.
Is it at Oklahoma State?
It is. Yeah, I'm pretty fired up about the travel itinerary changing Seattle and Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Phoenix area.
You're pumped about
for
Stillwater,
Lubbock, Waco.
Dude, so funny story.
My
When I was
gosh.
coaching at North Carolina State, and Philip Rivers is the quarterback, right? And we played against Wes Welker and Cliff Kingsbury. Those were the two main guys for Texas Tech. And And I'm not kidding you. Lubbock, Texas, if you've ever been there, it is ugly.
I have not.
It is terrible. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, Lubbock, Texas is like where they filmed old Westerns with like tumbleweeds. And we were driving there and there's like houses with like boarded up windows and tumbleweeds.
Tumbleweeds.
Philip Rivers starts yelling in the back of the bus, "You gotta Lubbock! You gotta Lubbock!
I get
You
it.
want to live here? You gotta Lubbock!" And we were making fun of Lubbock the whole time. We went to overtime with them. It was one of the hottest games I've ever just looking across the field, you could see those little heat waves coming up from the field.
Yeah.
So hot. We got out of there with a win at NC State, and I was like, and then Philip was back on the bus. You gotta Lubbock, you gotta love, and we got the heck out of there with a win. But that town, I can't even. There's nothing about it that redeems it to me.
Yeah,
the coolest thing about being in Lubbock was Bobby Knight was the coach.
At the time.
Philip Rivers had made some comment about they were like, "Hey, what do you think about Texas Tech?" And he went through it, and they're like, "What do you think about?" I think it was pretty close to when Bobby Knight had first taken the job, and he's like, "Dude, I would love to play for Bobby Knight." He goes, "You know exactly what you're going to get." Blah blah blah. Bobby Knight shows up to our team meeting at the hotel and
really?
breaks into the meeting. Doesn't even care this team meeting, and he goes, "Where's Philip Rivers? I want to meet Philip Rivers." And talked to our team for a second. Was awesome. But I'll tell you the thing that I didn't know about Bobby Knight is how tall he was. He was like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
He's a really tall guy. Had no idea. But that was fun. That's
Cool
my
story.
That's my Lubbock story.
All right, we're going to do some hockey next. Introduce you to our new hockey insider. Stay with us at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.